Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We really appreciate you bearing with us as we're all learning this new technology in our brave new world. So we are going to try this again. We've all kind of hit the reset button, and we are going to start over from the top so that we can make sure that we can share all of the important information that we want to share, particularly with our families. So we are going to take it from the top with our board chair, Keith Sutton. Again, an important reminder, now that we are in Google Meet, it is very important that all of our media friends joining us on the call make sure that your microphones are muted at all times. We will have an opportunity after both Chairman Keith Sutton and Superintendent Kathy Moore have spoken. We will have an opportunity for questions and answers. So please be patient and bear with us. So without further ado, now School Board Chairman Keith Sutton.
Good morning and welcome. The comments we have for you this morning and the Q&A that will follow from the media is our first event in a weekly series of broadcasts we expect to bring you while schools are closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate all of you who are watching and listening this morning. And once this is complete, we look forward to your feedback as we work to make each session as helpful to you as possible. Joining me this morning on this webinar will be Superintendent Kathy Moore. Superintendent Moore is going to review some of the efforts launched and underway since schools were closed to students on March 14th. At the conclusion of her comments, I will follow with some of the school district's plans in the coming days and weeks, especially as they pertain to the work of policymakers and elected officials. So Superintendent Moore, good morning, and I will ask that you please get us started.
Good morning. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to students who did their best to remain focused on learning right up to the day our classrooms were closed, and to those who have been able to continue to remain engaged in learning these past 2 weeks. Thank you to our teachers who are doing their best to replace a world built on student-teacher relationships with remote learning, a phrase that's being defined and redefined each day. And to our families, our mothers, fathers, grandparents, and caregivers, and others who suddenly find themselves isolated and under enormous pressure to figure out a world that's new for all of us. And thank you to our support staff, those who are working to support teachers remotely, making sure employees are paid, food is distributed, and facilities are monitored and maintained. Your work, patience, and persistence are inspiring. Our very first response to this crisis was to meet the most basic need of our community, ensuring that all students and families were fed. Since March 17th, we have served over 75,000 meals to students and families. I thank Child Nutrition Services staff for the pride and compassion that they put into this crucial effort. We now have 29 meal distribution sites throughout the county, serving hot lunches and providing breakfast foods for the next day. Our frontline healthcare workers in the district are collecting medical safety equipment from our schools to support the need for personal protective equipment for our community health centers. In just 2 days, our bus drivers and health services team have collected more than 2,000 boxes of gloves, approximately 3,000 face shield masks, about 600 gowns, more than 200 bottles of hand sanitizer, and more than 500 containers of surface disinfecting wipes. And they're back at schools today, collecting even more. All the while, we've been planning on how to effectively execute our core mission of teaching and learning, but now we must do it all remotely. And we want our teachers and students to have time to adjust to what remote learning looks like in content, contact, and context. This undertaking is enormous and is largely uncharted territory for us. We are strengthening training for teachers around delivering continuous remote learning activities. We have many teachers who are versed in best practices and have experience with remote learning tools, and we have many who are learning now. To support them, this week alone, we have handed out more than 1,000 new laptops to teachers, funded by the 2018 school bond. But in the middle of deploying all this technology, one thing we have heard repeatedly from our teachers: they miss their students. We've asked teachers to start reaching out to students and families in this next week to check in and see how they are doing, to discuss students' internet and device access, and begin introducing materials and resources. But we know that many have already done so this past week, and some even last week. They just couldn't wait. We also launched our remote learning resources website. This has been viewed by more than 116,000 individuals, with sessions approaching 200,000 and page views approaching 500,000. I have shared the WCPSS remote learning website with other districts that are working to implement their remote learning plans. It's been an excellent tool for students, parents, and teachers to become accustomed to what continuous remote learning may look like. We know teachers have many questions surrounding the successful delivery of remote learning. It is to be expected. Please don't get discouraged. We've already seen teachers working in collaboration with their teams in their schools and across schools to learn and plan for their students. This is a journey for all of us. We do not expect perfection. We know there will be missteps and adjustments along the way. We know that our teachers will be giving their best effort under the circumstances. We are working as quickly as possible to provide answers, many of which will be incorporated into the development of the second version of our remote learning website, which will be online in the next few days. In fact, this afternoon, teachers will receive information regarding guidance around initial steps for implementation of phase 2. We all know that remote learning cannot replace the classroom experience. However, I firmly believe that we will be able to build on the plans and platforms already started to help all students learn and grow while not in their classrooms. Again, many thanks to the parents, students, and teachers for their patience as we continue to work together to help children continue to learn and grow under conditions none of us imagined or expected. As a reminder, you can keep up with messaging and resources at www.wcpss.net/coronavirus. Mr. Sutton.
I want to echo the gratitude offered to Superintendent Moore for all of the effort made so far by students, families, teachers, and support staff. This has been a long 2 weeks for many of us. And as you know, we have quite a few weeks in front of us before we can open up our schools again. I'd like to focus now on a couple of key items looking at the week ahead. The first involves our expanding efforts to provide food to families. Monday, we'll start rolling out our big bus food trucks to set up pop-up food distribution sites in some neighborhoods and communities. The district will be sending more information out later today about this expansion. I also want to thank our hardworking bus drivers and child nutrition staff for their dedication to our students and families in making this possible. As Superintendent Moore mentioned, many of our teachers are already working with students. In the coming week, we expect most children will hear from their teachers in some form or another. And by the week of April 6th, continuous remote learning will be fully launched for year-round students, with traditional calendar students right behind. I also want to speak directly to issues of equity. We are keenly aware that not all students have devices or internet access from home. We are also aware that some parents were ready to have their children begin new lessons within a few days after the governor closed schools 2 weeks ago. That is a broad spectrum of needs to satisfy. For those who have access to lessons and are driven to continue mastering new material, I offer my congratulations. Please keep at it. But also understand that it takes time and effort to get materials into the hands of children who don't enjoy the same advantages. We will enlist our bus drivers to deliver laptops, hotspots, and other learning materials to students in the coming days. Our academics team is discussing ways to courier work packets back and forth between teachers and students. We do need to be realistic. These will not replace the interaction that occurs between teacher and student. But I also believe our community is a community that cares whether those who need these materials should have the chance to succeed. There are still several key areas where we are waiting on formal guidance from state education officials and state lawmakers. But even before that guidance is made official, I can say with confidence that state educators understand the problems this pandemic has created and are focused on providing flexibility. Just yesterday, the State Board of Education, for example, discussed waiving state exams along with flexibility in final grades and the school calendar. Each of these areas could clearly have ripple effects in countless directions, from grade point averages to teacher evaluations. Some of these changes will require legislative approval. Others will come directly from the State Department of Public Instruction. And of course, one of the biggest issues of concern for employees is that of compensation. Here in Wake, we are heavily promoting telework options for any employee who is not assigned a specific task outside the home. This is especially important following the county commissioner's announcement of stay-at-home orders beginning at 5 p.m. this evening. We also have critical tasks that require workers to be on site. Our bus drivers and child nutrition services workers are a good example of that. Our governor and some state lawmakers have made it clear that they intend for all public school employees to be paid. This is obviously a good start and an issue we are monitoring closely to ensure that it happens. Employee pay is not an issue unique to Wake County. And of course, I would encourage parents, employees, and all policymakers who understand the importance of this issue to make sure their voices are heard at the state level. This pandemic will end. And when it does, our community needs to have the economic strength to pick up where it left off. And in the process, provide our children the education they deserve. The Wake County Public School System family, a group of students, parents, employees, and spouses that numbers nearly 500,000 people, is the largest single family in our county of roughly 1 million residents. As one member of that family, I want to end with a simple request of you. Take care of yourself so we can take care of each other. Thank you. We'll now take questions from the meeting.
Does anyone have any questions
morning.
they'd like to ask of Chairman Sutton or Superintendent Moore?
Thank you.
And again, please remember to mute your mic if you are not speaking.
Hi, Lisa, can you hear me? This is Jimmy Price with CBS 17. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Other than the teachers not being able to see the students, what are the other challenges that they've been facing right now?
Superintendent Moore, would you like to take that one?
Sure. I think that, relationships are more than, when you see students, the interactions that occur, the ability to understand and see the work as it's happening right then and there, to see a hand raised, to ask a question, the communication and collaboration, that environment that exists in the classroom is just not the same when you're doing remote learning. So they have to adjust to what that looks like. And that's something that will be an ongoing challenge and evolving as they learn how to operate in that environment.
Are you guys fearful that school will be canceled for the rest of the school year? We've seen this happen at other districts and across the country. Are you guys fearful that that could happen? Is that a reality?
I believe it is certainly a possibility. I know that our governor is committed to hoping that we can salvage the school year, but it is an evolving situation.
And I would just add to that, I don't know that we're fearful. We do anticipate it, and I think that we are planning for that and prepared if that is the case.
How do you
Thank you.
administer end of year tests, and what type of grace is given to students who, of course, have missed so much time? You have students who may have certain learning disabilities, some who may learn more visually and in close contact. You mentioned the state was looking at that, but have you thought that far ahead in terms of end of grade testing?
So we are aware that the State Board of Education is recommending that we not issue and not even implement the end of year assessments. They have applied and been granted a federal waiver from ESSA requirements. And then there are some requirements at the state level that they're working on the legislators with. If we can take those end of course assessments off the table, that does help with ensuring that all new learning that's happening, intervention and extensions, actually meet the needs of students without the burden of looking at a formal assessment at the end of that course. So the flexibility that we're looking for, quite frankly, has to do with ensuring that those assessments are in fact waived, that we don't have to take them, looking at how grading schemes will work for the remainder of the school year, the flexibilities that are needed to ensure that as we transition to remote learning, we are taking into account the fact that it is not the same for every student or teacher.
And if so, what type of concern is there for students who, may naturally just fall behind as a result of not being in the classroom?
I didn't catch the last part of that. Students who may fall behind as a result of?
Not being in the classroom. Do we worry that they're not essentially going to be ready for the next grade if they are promoted without, having passed these tests or proven to have learned the actual material?
I do believe that the impact of the remote learning, the pandemic, the closure of schools will carry into the next school year, and that we will need to be prepared to address the needs of students as they return to the school setting, whenever that may be, to mitigate the impact of the ability to access and do the work while we're doing the remote learning plan.
I'd just like to add to that. I think that is the challenge as we look at remote learning, in particular providing new content, given the where students are and the different learning styles, as you indicated. I do worry that we may exacerbate gaps instead of closing gaps. So that is a huge concern, I think, for me and other members of this board.
I know you guys are preparing right now for that possibility that school could be canceled for the rest of the school year. I'm not sure if you guys are there yet in this part of the planning, but what happens to the students? Like, as far as, let's say a student's in third grade, will they just automatically move to fourth grade? Or will the parent have an opportunity to say, no, I don't think he got everything that he needed in third grade, let's keep him there? How would that work as far as moving on to the next grade level? Have you guys got that far in the planning?
Grade level promotion and retention is a topic that the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction are discussing in terms of how we might look differently this year at how to implement promotion or retention. It is always a collaborative process that does include the family, but we may need to look for guidance from the state on how to change that for specifically the reasons that you are considering, that the remote learning really does change that landscape.
There was mention of laptops and hotspot devices being delivered. Do you know what day those are going to be going out, or how soon?
I couldn't hear that question.
I was asking when the laptops and the hotspots were going out. And also, do you have a total again on how many you're going to be delivering to students?
We expect that the rollout for teachers will conclude early next week, and the rollout for students will begin sometime next week. Right now, we are working with our schools to determine what the need is, so we don't yet have numbers.
Okay, everyone, I think we have time for just one last question. Does anyone have one last question? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us and bearing with us as we all learn in this together. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.